What up, guys? Welcome back to Oregon Underground Magic, and I'm Oregon Magic, and I'm here to talk about an ESPER standard deck that I've been playing, and I just got to modify it a little bit, so I got excited. Starts off with 2 copies of Hostage Taker. Well, Hostage Taker is a good creature because it comes in, it removes a threat temporarily, or you can cast it after you've removed it. And that gives you card advantage and lets you take over a game. Is Visor of Many Faces. Visor of Many Faces is an epic card. It actually can target anything, including hexproof. It enters the battlefield as a copy of. It does not target. So you can have it come in as that Carnage Tyrant that your opponent just played. I run 2 copies of Cataclysmic Gearhulk. I find this card is great on turn 5 against creature heavy decks, enchantment heavy decks, planeswalker heavy decks. You just basically leave them with 1. Got 3 copies of Angel of Invention. This card is just, it's really powerful. Flying, Vigilance, Lifelink, comes in the battlefield. You can put 2/1/1 counters on it or make 2 servos. And she gives all of the creatures you control +1/+1. So I also run 2 copies of the Scarab God. Well, the obvious reasons, it has proven itself one of the best cards in the entire format. I mean, the power to reanimate anytime you want. You get to scry for each zombie you control that you've reanimated, and make your opponent lose some life during their upkeep. So, I mean, it's just constantly trying to keep your opponent on a drain game, and you get to fix whatever cards you want. It kind of feels a little bit like cheating, but, you know, stuff happens. You get away with it for a little while. I also run 3 copies of the Marionette Master. You will see in my Instants and Sorceries why a little bit later. But for now, it's a 1/3 creature that comes in with 3/1/1 counters, and every time an artifact I control goes to the graveyard, well, the opponent loses life equal to its power. So there's a trick in this deck that'll let you turn 5 and then turn 6 win. I'll tell you about it a little later when I get to that card. And last but not least, Primal Tide, because, you know, love cards that can't be countered. Gives you no maximum hand size. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, I get to draw a card. So it's constantly refilling my hand, taxing my opponent for everything that he's doing. And then, if they decide to target it or to try to destroy it with something, all you gotta do is 3 of those cards that they gave you, and it exiles and returns at the beginning of the next end step. So, I mean, there is a lot of power there. It's got evasiveness, it's constantly giving you card draw, and I think it is a card to be reckoned with. So that's it for the creature base. It's 14 creatures in total. I don't think you need any more than that. It is kind of a mid-range control deck. Here I'm using 2 copies of Censor to start it off. Because people like to play on curve. They like to spend all their mana to drop their big creature trying to get it out, or their big artifact, or their planeswalker. And with Censor, all you gotta do is make sure that they don't have a mana source, and it stops it from coming out. I also main board 2 copies of Essence Scatter, because, you know, when somebody tries to drop the Scarab God on you, well, it's around the format, so it's gonna be there all the time. So, yeah, when they try to drop it on you, whoop, bam, out it goes. Then they try to hit you with Gonti and play your cards against you. Guess what? It's not gonna happen. Also, a couple copies of Negate in the main. Obvious reasons. There's just way too much going on in the standard format right now. There's the new Saga cards. There's all kinds of a few new planeswalkers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Negate hits, and it's 2 mana. It's a great investment to stop something that they really wanted to get on the board and you didn't let. 3, as foretold. Now, As Foretold comes out, it starts off kind of slow, but remember, you are in a control deck. So you put a time counter on As Foretold, and then once each turn, so both yours and your opponent's turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast with converted mana cost to X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold. So, it may start off slow, but as soon as you get 2, you're going to start countering spells in this deck. And then once you get up to 4 or 5, you're going to be dropping creature and have mana open to protect it. You're also going to be able to counter spells on your opponent's turn because of As Foretold. And you don't have to spend any mana to do so. So 2 copies of As Foretold. Then I added 3 copies of Supreme Will, both as a counterspell or card draw method. Being able to look at 4 cards and taking the best one for your scenario is awesome. It really is, and it can really change the game before the end of it. But also being able to counter a spell. I mean, 3 mana is a lot when they're trying to play a 5-drop. Even on turn 7, it'll hit it. 1 Vraska's Contempt. I'm also playing 3 Glimmer of Genius. Not least, I'm running 3 copies of Spell Swindle. Remember earlier I said there was a little bit of a combo in the deck? Well, if you wait on turn 5 and you know your opponent plays a 5-drop, we call it Regisaur Alpha. I used to play dinosaurs a lot, so I've been spell swindled and beaten this way, so that's why I enjoy it. So yeah, so you counter to 5-drops, so it gives you 5 artifact treasure tokens. Then the next turn, on your main phase, you drop Marionette Master. When you drop Marionette Master, it enters the battlefield. You fabricate 3 1/1 counters on it, making it have a power of 4. So 4 plus the 5 artifacts you got that you sack for mana immediately, and you do 20 direct damage without doing anything else. So a couple of new cards now. I'm going with Karn. Like you just saw, Spell Swindle, it makes a bunch of artifacts. Karn makes creatures that get bigger with artifacts. So I mean, it's secondary win Karn if you can't find your Marionette Master. Also, it's card draw. You get, even if you get a land and a spell, and your opponent exiles the spell and gives you the land, well, next turn you just neg 1 and you get to put that spell back in your hand. So it's not like there's a disadvantage to the opponent picking one of the 2 cards. You just get the one that they find less threatening at the time, and then you neg 1 and you get the next one back. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things to do with Karn to Teferis. Because Teferi, once it gets out on the battlefield, you get to draw a card. Then it untaps 2 lands. So it's kind of like playing it for 3 as long as you have 5 mana. That leaves it open for a couple of different counter spells as well. So, I mean, it in a way, it protects itself with the card draw +1. Because you can draw the counter spell and then untap the mana you need to play it. His neg 3 ability is also really good because it puts a non-land permanent 3 cards from the top of its owner's library. 3 cards. That means that 3 turns before they get that threat back. That's pretty good. That's enough to plus it all the way back up and do it again. So I mean, you can lock a creature out that way, or you can plus him until he gets to his emblem, which is whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent an opponent controls. So if they don't have no creatures or artifacts or enchantments, which are all permanents that you can exile, you can also pick off their land. So like if somebody flips a search Chaz Conta, well, guess what? I'm gonna exile it. That emblem is really powerful because you draw a card every turn. So if you get it, it's pretty much good game. Like, there's not a lot you can do about that losing permanents as fast as you can play them. 2 copies of Fetid Pulse. One, because a turn 1 Fetid Pulse isn't bad, but you run 25 land in this deck. So once you get to 5 or 6 lands, you can start cycling the cycle lands to draw cards. Or if you need to find something in a desperate situation, you can cycle that card and find something else that you need. So I find it good in this, and it's also an island swamp, which comes in handy later in the mana base because there's a lot of check lands. So yeah, 2 Fetid Pools. Speaking of check lands, well, Drowned Catacombs. We run 4 copies of Drowned Catacomb. They don't enter the battlefield tapped as long as you control an island or a swamp. So untapped mana has a lot of value, so that's what I do. Glacial Fortress. Also check land. I run 3 of those because, you know, they come in untapped and they're 2-color lands. I might have to bring them in tapped occasionally, but for the most part, they enter untapped. 3 copies of Concealed Courtyard, because getting fast mana isn't always a bad thing, and it's more fixing in our colors, so it works for the deck. It really does. Isolated Chapel, 2 copies of that. It's another check land. And getting a bit of a pattern here. Once you get 1 basic land out, or 1 of the cycling lands, you can pretty much bring in any land in this deck untapped, except for more cycling lands. And the last expensive land is Irrigated Farmland. It's once again a cycle land. I went with 2 plains, 2 swamps, and 3 islands to end the deck. That is 25 land, all the creatures and planeswalkers. I plan on playing it this weekend. I'm hoping to get some footage of it, and I will be at my local game store. So I'm going to try and get some footage of some live matches with it so that people can see how the deck plays out, see if they're interested in playing it. I see everybody doing the online thing. I'm a paper Magic guy. I enjoy playing the game face to face, so and it's just real fun that way. So anyways, I'm going to go through the sideboard real quick. I got 2 copies of Pull from Tomorrow, 1 Authority of the Cancel, 2 copies of Fatal Push, because it's once again Black's #1 or #2 removal spell in the whole meta right now, so gotta keep it in there. Such a pretty push. 1 Ixalan's Binding, because you know you gotta keep things off the board sometimes and make it where they can't cast the spell. 2 more copies of Essence Scatter for those creature heavy decks. Vana's Hunger, Slaughter the Strong, a single copy of Fumigate, 3rd copy of Negate, and River's Rebuke. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like, subscribe button. Hit me up on Facebook or Patreon. It'll be up right over here in about 2 seconds. Thanks for watching. Like always, good luck, have fun.